Welcome back to the Dylan Shea channel. We're doing a Premier League strikers tier list today. I don't want to waste any of your time, so what I'm going to do is go straight into the tier list. The tiers are world class, Champions League level, good, okay, frustrating / not shown enough, not impressed / not good. Now the Champions League level one doesn't mean you could play for Club Bruges. It means you can play for one of the better sides in the Champions League, at Dortmund. You can play for Spurs, you can play for Liverpool, you can play for a Man United, well, they'll be in the next year, or someone like that, you know. Frustrating / not shown enough, that's sort of like two different categories, really, in one. Frustrating are players that I'm frustrated with, who I think could be doing better. And then not shown enough is someone who I just haven't seen enough of. And the last one, not impressed / not good, speaks for itself, really. Let's go into Ollie Watkins. Now, Ollie Watkins is a player that is good. I think he's a good player for a start. I think the first one I'm thinking of is this tier here, in the good, because he has 4 goals in his last 5. He's been really impressive of late. He can score with his right, with his head and his left foot. He has 4 goals with his right foot this year, 2 with his left and 2 with his head. So he's more, you know, he's a complete sort of striker. I do like him. I do feel when I watch him, I think, there could be more from you. But I think the good category is good for Ollie Watkins. I do think he's a good Premier League striker. I think Aston Villa is about his level. Now let's go on to Michail Antonio. Now Michail Antonio, if you asked me a year ago, was good and pushing Champions League level. Probably not Champions League level, but yeah, he's definitely, I would now put him in the okay category. His stock has dropped a lot. He's having a really bad season. He has 3 goals, I think, this year, 2 assists. It's not good enough. He's been really unclinical for West Ham, really unreliable. And, you know, I think last year, the early start of the season, I think he won Player of the Month for September. Yeah, for me, he hasn't really rediscovered that form since. He was good last year, and the first half of the season he was really good. But since then, I don't think we've seen the same Antonio. Not clinical enough. Yeah, I think okay is good. I think if he can, you know, rediscover his form, he can go back to good. I don't think he'll be frustrating. You have to consider he's West Ham's top goal scorer in Premier League history. You know, he's a West Ham legend. So maybe it feels a bit harsh in good, in okay, because is he a good player? He's had a poor season, but overall, he probably is a good. If I was to take one at Spurs, I would take Watkins every day of the week. I'm going to put him in okay for now. I think that could trigger a few West Ham fans, I'm not going to lie. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's go to Ivan Toney. Now, for me, Ivan Toney is Champions League level. I mean, he won't be at Brentford for long. I think if one of the bigger clubs went in for him, you know, it would be great. I think, you know, he's got 15 goals in the Premier League this year for Brentford. That is ridiculous. He's only 5 goals off Harry Kane. He's a complete striker as well. I don't think his completeness actually gets a lot of credit. I think he'd be amazing for Man United, you know, to link with Rashford. Against Arsenal, the league leaders, he had 54 touches against them. He was fouled 4 times. I don't think there's a striker that much tougher than Toney to play against in the league. I think if you were to ask centre-backs who's their top 3 toughest strikers to defend against, I think he'd be in most of their top 3s. If a big club went in for him, I don't even think it would be a gamble. Let's go on to Evan Ferguson. Now, where do I think Evan Ferguson should go? I think he should go in the frustrating / not known, not shown enough, because he hasn't shown enough. I mean, he's started, I think, 5, scored 3, assisted 2, which is really impressive. It's good, but he hasn't shown enough. I can't put him in okay with West Ham's highest goal scorer of all time in the Premier League. You know, with someone who's played 5 games in the Premier League, that's not how this works. Yeah, he's shown a lot of promise. He's been linked with a lot of really big clubs. I don't think he's ready for that yet. I would say let him, you know, develop at Brighton. He's shown a lot of promise. I think he's from Ireland, so a really good player for them to have. Really good at heading the ball. Scored an amazing header against Leicester. Scored a good composed goal against Arsenal as well. So yeah, I've been really impressed with Evan Ferguson. Let's go on to Che Adams. I think with Che Adams, he is quite frustrating, I think. I think there's a good player in there. I think overall as a striker, his overall play is quite good. He does miss a lot of chances. He has 4 goals, 3 assists this year, which isn't terrible, but it's definitely not good. And for me, for him to be, with Antonio Watkins, he would have to score a lot more goals than he currently is. And I think he's only going to be in here for this one. I think the next time I do a striker tier list, it will be Onuachu for Southampton. I don't think Che Adams is a championship level player, but I would say that he's definitely not cutting it completely right now. And I think there is a player in there, I think against Leicester, we saw, the playmaking ability that he can have, the passing ability, it is there, but yeah, he doesn't score enough goals and he's not doing the job for Southampton right now, so he has to go in frustrating for me, which is a shame because I think, I have the same name as him for a start, so he's letting the Shades down. Erling Haaland, let's go on to him, shall we? Let's just put him in world class because, he's not going to be anywhere else. He has 28 goals in the Premier League. This year in 25 something starts, it's an absolute joke. He will be the greatest goal scorer of all time. Striker anyway. He might not get more than Ronaldo, but in terms of a striker, he will be the best, I think. And he's already shown that he is one of the best ever, getting 28 goals in the Prem. The record is 32 with Salah. So he needs 4 more or 5 more to break the record. Joke. Absolute joke. The best poacher in the world, the best poacher we'll ever see, I think, Erling Haaland. And yeah, 28 goals is a disgrace, actually. 27 of those inside the box as well. He's just a joke, isn't he? I think if you put a fast winger with him, with Man City, I think Man City are easily top of the league. 1.1 goals per game, 32% goal conversion rate. That means every 3 shots he has, he scores 1. What even is this guy? World class. Yeah, he's unreal, man. He's unreal. Let's go on to Raul Jimenez. Now, Raul Jimenez, a few years ago, I think was pushing Champions League level. I think for Wolves, since they've been in the Premier League, he's been their best player this whole time. And I've been really impressed with Jimenez at times, but it's a massive shame what has happened to him, with his head injury. He's not been the same player since. I have his goals here. It's 0 goals this year. Last year it was just 6. I think the year before that it was like 4. But the season before that it was 17 goals, 6 assists. So impressive in that year. I thought he was amazing for Wolves. I thought he was their best player. But these last 3 seasons, 0 goals this year. He's averaging about 50 minutes a game. For me, he's in the not good. I don't think he's at the level anymore. Raul Jimenez. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's his fault. Let's go on to Patrick Bamford. Now, Patrick Bamford, the same season that Raul Jimenez got 17 goals, Bamford did as well. However, like Jimenez, Bamford has not been at the level. This year, he has about 2 goals, I think, 2 or 3 goals. Not good enough at all. But he does have moments, though, of quality. I'm going to put him in frustrating because you see that scoop turn he did in the FA Cup. He definitely has something, but he's just not showing it. And I think rightfully so he could go in this one here. But I do think there's just something there for me with Patrick Bamford where I think there's still more. There's more to come from you. And yeah, he's just not showing it right now. I think he can though. He's also got 3 goals from an XG of like 5, so he's way under delivering in that regard. So he does deserve probably to be in the not good category, but when I watch him, sometimes I can see something there, and yeah, I've been frustrated with him, so I think the tier does suit him. Next up, we've got Brennan Johnson. Now, he has 7 goals in the Premier League this year. He had 16 in the Championship last year, and I think he is okay. I think some people have gone a little bit overboard. For Wales in the World Cup, when he came on against Iran, he was terrible. One of the worst players when he came on. And that's pretty tough because Wales was terrible in that game. Didn't show enough for me. And I think at times he has gone hiding for Nottingham Forest. There's times where I don't even know that he's playing. But he's a good finisher. He scored some good goals. Some important goals as well. I think he had a brace the other day. I don't know. I just haven't been that amazed by Brennan Johnson. I think he's okay though. Kai Havertz. Now this is an interesting one because he could be in every single category apart from world class. Kai Havertz. Champions League level. He's literally scored a goal in a Champions League final. Good. He's definitely a good player. Okay. He's an okay player. Frustrating. He's frustrating, not impressed. You can say you've not been impressed with Kai Havertz since he's moved to Chelsea. So this is quite tough. I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to go good because there are moments, even this weekend that's just gone, the goal against Leicester, he just does have moments, doesn't he, where you just think you are really good on your day. You can be a really good player, and he really does remind me of Berbatov at times with that elegance and technique that he has. That goal he scored against Leicester was so Berbatov. That performance against Dortmund in the Champions League midweek, really good. You know, he's got a Champions League goal in the final. That's huge. And he is a good player. You know, he usually averages about 8 Premier League goals a season. I don't think he's a striker. I think he's more of a number 10. So I don't even think he's in his best position. But yeah, I think good for now. It is good for Kai Havertz. He could be Champions League level, but not as a striker. Now let's go on to Mitrovic because there's 2 tiers here which I'm fluctuating in between. I'm thinking good to Champions League level. I don't think he's as good as Toney, but I take him over these 2 here. He's really good, Mitrovic. He's a nightmare. He's probably the hardest to defend in the Premier League. With Havertz, not with Havertz, probably not. With Haaland, I think he is right up there. He is a nightmare. You know, what he did to Trent on the first game at that back post at the start of the season was criminal. And yeah, he is strong. He's good on the ball. Well, he's okay on the ball. Great finisher, 11 goals in the Premier League this year. Wins a lot of fouls as well. Really big for Fulham. Big reason why they're, you know, top half of the Premier League. For now, I would have to go good. Just because I need to see another season. You know, with Toney, this is his 2nd season in the Premier League now. I can tell you, Toney is a Champions League player. With Mitrovic, maybe not yet. I think he needs to do it just for a little bit longer. And maybe score a few more goals this year. Maybe get to that 15 mark for me to put him in the Champions League level. But he's a good player. Now, let's go on to Crystal Palace's Edouard. Now, this was tough. I didn't know whether to choose him or Mateta. Me personally, I've been more impressed with Mateta than Edouard. Not this year. Mateta's been terrible. But last year, I thought Mateta was good. And he's played Edouard a lot more lately. But I'm just not impressed with Edouard. I'm really not. Every time I watch him, I think his first touch can be off it. I haven't been impressed with his clinicalness, his ability to create chances, to pass the ball, you know, make through balls, you know, his movement. I've just not been impressed. Doesn't score enough at all. Got 3 goals this year, 6 goals last year in the Premier League. I don't know. You could say he's an okay, but to me he hasn't shown that in the Premier League so far with Palace. I think Palace will look to upgrade him in the summer. If they can't, then he will be the starting striker. But in the years to come, that is a position I think Palace will look to upgrade. I've not been impressed. I wouldn't say not good, but I would say not impressed definitely. Next up, we're going to go with Callum Wilson. Now, it's interesting with Callum Wilson because for me, again, he's in between Champions League and good. I would lean towards good, I think. Champions League level. For me, I'm talking like you have to be the ability to play for one of the best teams in the Premier League or then one of the best in Europe as well. He is Champions League level. He does average, a goal every other game, I think. No, he's not Champions League level. He's just not fit enough. You can only be as good, as you play, and he doesn't play enough. And if you don't play enough, you can't be Champions League level for me. He's a really good player when he plays. He really is. 7 goals this year, 3 assists, 10 goal contributions. Can't really argue with it. I think under Steve Bruce as well, he's a massive reason why they weren't bottom of the table. Him and St. Maximin, I thought, really carried Newcastle. He's been an amazing signing for Newcastle. Is he Champions League level? I guess he nearly is, really. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go Champions League level for Callum Wilson. I'm going to do it because I think he could do a job for Chelsea or Liverpool or Man United. He isn't fit enough, that's true. But ability, I think I'm going to go back on what I said about a minute ago and say he's Champions League level. Yeah, Champions League level. No, he's good. He's a good player. He's a good player. Yeah, Callum Wilson is good. I don't know what to do. Good. I'm sticking with good. Now, here's someone who we know is good, if not better than good. Well, he's definitely better than good. He's definitely better than Champions League level. Harry Kane in world class. Now, who do I think is the best out of these two? I think it's Erling Haaland. But Harry Kane is certainly world class. You can take a compilation of Kane's performances every single game and make a 2-minute compilation on him doing unbelievable passes, getting free kicks, goals, assists. He's ridiculous, Harry Kane. He's the most complete striker in the world, I think. He's probably the best passer from a striker I've ever seen. His passing is ridiculous, honestly. Yeah, definitely world class. 203 goals in the Premier League, Tottenham's highest goal scorer of all time. 20 Premier League goals this year for the 6th season in a row. Only Shearer and Aguero have done that. Yeah, no, he's definitely world class. One of the best in the world. One of the best we've ever seen in the Prem. Let's move on, though, to Iheanacho. That is tough. Iheanacho. I'm going to go okay, just because he doesn't play enough for now. He has 3 goals, 4 assists in 6 or 7 starts this season. He usually does get good goal contributions per game and assists. Sometimes he has bad games. I mean, the Southampton one away is terrible. It's an absolute shocker he's had there. My glasses keep falling off, by the way. That's why I keep having to do this. 2 years ago for Leicester, he got 12 goals in the Premier League. I thought he would cement himself as Leicester's striker. He hasn't really done that. I think he should play a striker every game. I think playing Vardy is a war crime. Now, I don't think he should be playing. It should be Iheanacho, and I think he's okay, but I think he can go to good. But for now, because he's not played enough, not scored enough, I'll go okay. Now, frustrating for Calvert Lewin, because if he was fit, he would be here. He would be a Champions League level striker. I really think so. I think, when he was a few years ago, really playing well for Everton, I think he would have been an ideal player for Man United. Or Chelsea, one of them two. I even think if Kane left, Calvert Lewin wouldn't have been a bad replacement for him. But the injuries, frustrating. It's so frustrating because he's so good on his day. 15 goals he got in the Prem a few years ago. The season before that, he had 13. He was really looking, he was progressing every single season. He has one of the best leaps in football, in my opinion, probably second behind Ronaldo. It's just such a shame because when he first played for Everton, I thought he was the worst player I had ever seen in my life. And he just progressed every single year for a couple of seasons. And then, the injuries, he doesn't play anymore. So he's going to have to go frustrating for me. Really frustrating. Gabriel Jesus. Now, Gabriel Jesus is definitely Champions League level. I think at times this year he looked world class. He looked like Messi at the start of the season, but for me he has to do that for a little bit longer for me to consider him world class. I think Champions League level for now. He still has problems. He's not clinical enough. He has 5 goals, 5 assists this year actually, which was really impressive considering he only played about 10-ish games or something before getting injured. So really impressive. But there were times he could be on about 12 goals, but he just wasn't clinical enough, which is something we saw at Man City. But I think as an overall player, he's up there with, Kane for overall play. Maybe not as good in his passing, but a really, really good player. A false 9. He's not really a false 9, but he is. He's sort of that in-between of a false 9 and a number 10. A true number 9 even. But yeah, Champions League level for now, which is what Arsenal will be next year. Might even be title winners. Hopefully not. I think before he got injured, he was also Arsenal's best player. Odegaard wasn't as good as him. Saka wasn't as good as him. Martinelli wasn't. I think the only one that you can argue was Saliba. But even then, I think Jesus was playing on a different level this season. And if he can carry on that next year and maybe the year after, I think he goes into world class. But for now, I think Champions League level for me. Let's go on to Dominik Solanke. Now, Solanke, I think, is one that everyone thinks is terrible. I don't think he's amazing, but every time I watch him, I don't know what it is. I think he's a decent player. I don't know what it is. I think he's a okay player. That's going to get me a bit of hate. I know. He's not clinical enough. He's just not clinical enough. I think not shown enough. It's only his first season back in the Premier League. Could be his last, as Bournemouth probably will go back down. I don't think he's terrible. I really don't. Okay? No, first, not shown enough. Not scored enough either. It's very unclinical. Even against Liverpool, I thought there were moments where he looked good, and then he just sort of has a chance that he messes up with his touch. Just seen that a little bit too much from him. But yeah, I think there's talent there. I think he's a good, tidy... The way to describe Solanke is a good, neat, tidy player. If he could become a little bit more clinical, then I think he could go into the okay category as an okay Premier League striker. But for now, not showed enough. And frustrating as well at the same time. And let's go on to the last two. Now, Wout, however you say it, Weghorst is not good. He is not a good player. The only reason for me he's had compliments this year is because, one, he works hard, which is good. That is ideal to have a striker that works hard. But the quality he has on the ball is so bad. He doesn't really do anything. What he does do is he's an actual striker. So Man United can pass him the ball and he can pass it back. He is big as well, which helps. But for me, if you were to put any striker in that Man United team, I think they'd do the job he does, plus more. Because apart from a little pass he does to Fernandes or Eriksen or Casemiro now and then, I don't think he does much at all. He's terrible in front of goal. He has 0 goals since being in the Prem. He only had 2 for Burnley last year. I don't think he's good. I just think, he's a good hard worker and respect to him. But if you were to say, who would he start for in the Prem? If everyone's striker was fit. I can't think of anyone. Maybe Everton because Calvert Lewin's never fit. I don't know. I don't think he starts with any of these. I really don't. I I don't rate him. Not a good enough scorer. Yeah. And last but not least, someone who's probably the most controversial here. People haven't really made their mind up on him. I haven't completely either. But I think he's Champions League level. I think he's an absolute nonsense to deal with. He's a lot to deal with for defenders. He's rapid. I think he's quite versatile. He can play on the left wing. He can play up front. I also think his heading ability is really strong. We've seen some great headers from him this year. I thought he was amazing against Man United. There's been some really good performances from him. He's had times where he isn't clinical. He should have more goals. But how many does he have? He has 8 goals, I have in front of me in 16 games in the Premier League this year. That's quite good, That is a goal every other game. He's always fit. He's versatile. He's rapid. And it's only his first season in the Premier League. I think he will improve. And he's just so young as well. He's about 21 years old. So I think he will improve. I think he's good enough to play for Liverpool. Yeah, I like him. I personally think he's a really good player. Do you agree with these picks? Probably not. I think, the one I'm looking at there is probably Havertz, because he's not on the level of a Callum Wilson. I'm just going to make it so the player who's closest to the tier name, that's how good, it's in order. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so the player who's to the left is who I think is the better player. So as you can see, I think Haaland is the best striker in the Premier League. I think Jimenez is the worst at the moment. I think, the Champions League, I think Jesus. No, I don't. Who do I think's the best out of Jesus and Toney? I think Toney. Bit more clinical, better goal scorer. I think Callum Wilson is the best in the good section. I think Antonio is the best in the okay section. And I think Ferguson is probably the best in the not shown enough / frustrating one. And Edouard is the best in the not impressed / not good. If you do agree with me, let me know. If you disagree as well, let me know. And thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new.